My name is Luis, and I'm very excited to show you Mind Studio and how you can start by the end of this webinar to build your very own custom AI applications. In this video, we're going to be, in this webinar, we're going to be um, showing you what Mind Studio is, showing you how to think about AI applications, and we're actually going to be building an AI application live, and I'm going to show you the process. Don't worry about building along with us. This entire webinar is going to be recorded and will be sent to you right at the end of the webinar. So let's go ahead and dive in. So again, my name is Luis. I'm a director of product here at Mind Studio, and I'm very excited to show you how to build your own AI applications using Mind Studio. A little bit about Mind Studio. We are venture backed. We've raised $36 million to date, and we launched Mind Studio summer of last year, and we've made several improvements to the platform since then. One thing that you should know as you start building is that you're not the first people here. In fact, there have been over 50,000 AI-powered applications that have been deployed across large enterprises, government agencies, small businesses, and solopreneurs that make AIs in order to optimize and make their lives more efficient. And these AI applications also span across a wide variety of teams within these organizations. So this includes AIs to help with sales, HR, recruiting, marketing, finance, IT, customer service. And if you'd like to check out a full list, we have a full list on our website that you can check out to see some of the use cases that we are seeing in the wild. So before we start building and before I show you the platform, I want to quickly discuss what an AI-powered application even is. An AI-powered application is going to be very similar to a mobile application that you are used to using on your mobile device. In this case, these are web applications, so they live on the web, but the interfaces are all very similar. These AI applications can be distributed everywhere. They can be shared via a link. They can be embedded in websites. They can be tied to the physical world and launched via QR code. You can add them to your mobile home screen because, again, they're progressive web apps. So very easy to create an app icon on your phone and open it from your phone. You can also wrap these up and publish them inside of app stores like the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store. And you can also run these AI applications headless via API, meaning that you only use the actual AI processing that's happening and create your own custom interfaces. And of course, you get to determine who has access to these AI applications, whether it's just you, people on your team, whether you want to hide this behind a paywall on your website and have folks subscribe to get access to your AI applications, or they can be made available to the public. So now let's quickly talk about what the components are that make up an AI application, right? There are basically two major chunks to an AI application. There's the front-end interfaces. These include screens like onboarding screens, which allow you to collect information in order to give the AI context and train the AI, several forms where you can collect information, have your end users upload files and data and things like that. All sorts of menus that allow you to route the AI to different places. And then of course, the final output screen, what the AI actually generates for you. And then on the back end, there's all of the logic that happens within these AI applications. So that includes these various kinds of workflows that you build. There's all sorts of no-code workflows that you can build on Mind Studio. You get to determine the types of inputs that you can collect from your users. They look similar to Google Forms. You can obviously upload your own custom data and upload your own files and have the AI reference those files. You can make API calls to other services. You can enhance the capabilities of your AI via JavaScript functions if you're a coder. And of course, all of these AI applications call on AI models, these foundation AI models from OpenAI, Anthropic, Mistral, Google, Meta, all kinds of models. MindStudio is model agnostic, so it lets you pick and choose the right model for the right task, depending on what kind of work you're looking to accomplish inside of your workflow. And so you can kind of think of AI applications within your enterprise in this way, right? You take your data from your organization, you combine it with you know, the power of AI models. You can bring in data from other services, and you're able to create these applications with no code. You get business intelligence, you get to understand how people are using these AI applications. You can build all sorts of custom applications for yourself, for your business. You can build conversational assistants, automate processes, and we're going to dive into all of that a bit later. So now that you kind of have an overview of uh, AI-powered applications, let's go ahead and I'm going to show you some of what we just talked about. So here I have an example AI application called Sales Copilot. When you first land on an AI application inside of MindStudio, you'll notice that we have these onboarding screens that will help us enter some information about in this case, the salesperson's company, right? In order for the AI to have context about the types of products you're selling, the types of services that you're offering. And so this is kind of an intro screen. It'll ask you the name of your product. In this case, it's a fictional product that I created for this demonstration called Flow Task. That's a uh, project management tool. You can add a description. You can list out key features. There are all sorts of different inputs, value propositions. You can include a link to your website so that it can scrape data from your website in order to get this information. And then once you finish this onboarding section, you'll be taken to a new thread in your AI application. And from here, you'll notice that we have a menu here. And again, this is just very similar interfaces that you're used to seeing, like you'd see on a mobile application or web application or a Google form, right? And so it'll ask us what we want to do, and this AI application can do a couple of things. It can create some sales collaterals for us. It can help us do role play for people who are selling to various businesses and create a scenario for us. And it can also help the salesperson ask questions about our sales process, and we've trained it on the knowledge base of our product and our sales processes. So let's go ahead and we'll create some sales collaterals. And from here, it's going to ask us a few questions, right? Because we have given it some information about our company. Now we need to give it information about the client that we're speaking to, and it's going to generate these personalized sales collateral for that particular client that we're speaking with. And so just for the purposes of this demonstration, let's say we're talking to, the company Green Tech Solutions. And the company is an eco-friendly company. I actually have a bunch of information here that I've come up with, so I can quickly copy and paste the description about the company, and this might come from CRM or something like that. We can describe the name of the representative. Let's say we're speaking to Alex Johnson at this company, and maybe they are the director of operations. And then it asks us if they're the final decision maker. We can say yes or no, and that might impact the type of messaging that is generated for this particular person. So let's just say no. So at this point, the AI is taking in all of these inputs. It's taking in the information we provided about our company. It's taking in information that we gave it about the client that we're speaking to. It is finding all of these pain points that this client might have and then mapping those pain points to, potential solutions that we can provide as a company, and then creating a final sales collateral that we can pass along to that potential client. And so this is saving us, so this is just one example of an AI application that you can build. You can see that all of the sales collateral is streaming in, and it's completely personalized for green tech solutions. It addresses all of the potential pain points like complex project management, regulatory compliance, things like that. And once it's finished generating, we actually can go to a screen that allows us to take a look at what the AI has created. We can highlight portions of text, and if we'd like to, we can make changes to this text. So we can say, make it sound more professional. And of course, if we submit it, it will generate a new line of text for us that we can choose to approve or not. And so we can, in this case, I'll decline those revisions. And there are all kinds of end screens that you'll notice as you start to build out various types of AI applications. For example, we may want to have just a general chat, right? We may want to have a screen that allows us to, in this case, this is a call scenario. So we just chat with the AI to role play with the AI for a potential scenario. We can also view PDFs and chat with PDFs. And this application took, a very short amount of time to actually build, right? And so let's take a look now that you know kind of what an AI application looks like. Let's go ahead. I'm going to show you. We're going to build one together on this webinar, and I'm going to show you how easy it was to actually get started and to create your very own AI applications. So we're going to build the sales collateral generator on our own. And when you first arrive in Mind Studio, you're going to arrive at what we call the home base, right? Like this has your personal workspace AI, which is just a general purpose AI that you can use and chat with and ask questions. It's essentially a replacement for something like ChatGPT or Anthropic. And you can even determine what model you'd like to use inside of this AI. Once you land here, you can actually go in, you tap on this little gear icon, and you can edit this personal workspace AI, and you'll be able to customize it to fit your needs. You'll be taken into the editor. This editor we'll dive into in just a second, but you can go into model settings. You can see we are model agnostic, like I mentioned earlier, so you have access to all different kinds of AI models. New models are being added to the platform quite frequently. In fact, we have a big push to add about 5 to 10 more models to the platform. We don't care what model you use. So if you want to test out different kinds of models and compare them to one another, there are tools to do that as well. And we'll dive into that in just a second. So you can also create your own AI applications from the screen simply by tapping on the plus button here. You'll notice when you tap on this plus button that you'll be taken to a list that shows all of the AIs that you've created. Now, if you haven't created any AIs, this may show up as blank. When you get in here, you can create a new AI very simply just by tapping on the Create AI button. This is going to take us to a screen that allows us to get started very quickly by either importing an AI template. We have templates for all kinds of different use cases, which are a good place to start once you understand how to build AIs and how workflows work and things like that. But what I usually like to do after I've come up with the idea is to use this generate prompt tool. And this is going to utilize AI in order to help us build the initial system prompt for our AI. And we can just, I'm going to go ahead and click on next. From here, we can simply describe in just a couple of sentences what we want our AI to do. And so keep in mind that what we're building is the sales collateral generator. So we want an AI that allows us to generate sales collaterals based on data that we provide to it, our own data about the product or service we're selling, and some data about the client that we're talking to. So let's go ahead and describe that in a couple of sentences. I can say something like create sales collaterals that are personalized to the customer. Assistant uses information about humans' product to showcase the benefits of the product to the customer. And then human will provide information about the customer. Now you'll notice a couple of things as I type this out, right? We described it in just a couple of sentences, but I want to quickly touch upon some best practices as you're going about doing this. The first thing is we typically refer to the AI as the assistant, and we refer to the end user, the person that's using the AI, as human. This is just good practice as you start to build your own prompts or use the prompt generator. It makes things much simpler. So now that we've described it in a couple of sentences, we can obviously choose an engine, or you can learn more. The engines are open source. This default engine was created by us. And when you tap on generate, you'll be taken into the Mind Studio editor. You'll notice that AI is writing our initial prompt for us. These are just the set of instructions that we provide as the foundation for the AI that we're building. When you land in the editor, you're going to see, let me zoom out just a little bit. You're going to see a lot of stuff, right? On the left-hand side here, this is called your Explorer, and this is where all of the resources that are used to build your AI live. This includes any sort of files that you upload as data sources. This includes any custom JavaScript functions that can be used to enhance the capabilities of your AI if you're a coder. This includes any user inputs that you might create, any sort of forms that you create in order to collect data from your end user. And this also includes the workflow. And the workflow allows us to build these automated flows that allow us to do very bespoke and specific things inside of our AI applications. So we covered the prompt. It's just a general set of instructions. You kind of want to just make sure that everything looks correct. One thing that you will notice is that we use Markdown. And so if you're familiar with Markdown, you know that these hashtag marks refer to headers. So you can think of this as like an H1, this one as like an H2, some bullet points. And as long as all the information is correct, you don't really need to add much in here after the prompt has been generated. The main place where you're going to be working when you build your AI applications is inside of this automations tab. This is the automations canvas. And the automations canvas is a scrollable canvas. You can scroll up and down. You can hold shift and scroll left and right. And then if you ever get lost, so if you move off the screen and you can't see your blocks anymore, you can always use this little home icon here at the bottom, and it will center everything for you. The automations workflow, like we mentioned, is where you're going to be adding most of the components to create your AI application. And it's made up of three parts. It's very simple. There's the start block. This initializes the AI workflow. There is this end block, which we call the terminator block. And this block determines the end state for your AI applications. We saw a couple in the demonstration. We have a chat. We have this document editor. We have this data source explorer, which allows you to view with a PDF and scan the PDF as you're chatting with it. And then there's everything in between, right? And this everything in between is where we're going to be adding all of the different pieces to create our AI application. We can add new blocks to our canvas just by tapping on this plus button. And then we have access to all kinds of blocks to add to our workflow. This includes blocks like the send message block, which allows us to send a message on behalf of the user. So it's kind of automating that part of the process, so nobody ever has to remember a prompt for ChatGPT or anything like that ever again. You can just build it into your AI application to do the thing that you want it to do consistently every single time you use the application. You have user inputs, which allow you to collect data from your end users, whether that's form fields or file uploads or image uploads. We'll dive into this in just a second. You can also, query data if you have uploaded files into your data sources. We'll talk about that a bit later in the session. Run custom JavaScript functions. And then you have various ways to sort of create routes in your AI application. So this green block at the end is called the terminator block. We can set up all sorts of menus. You saw a menu earlier in the demonstration. You can set up logic, or you can even have multiple workflows inside of your AI project, and you can jump to workflows that do very specific things based on what you want the AI to do. At the beginning of this presentation, we're going to keep it simple, and we're just going to use this user input and this send message block. So just to reiterate, what we're building is a sales collateral generator, and that requires us to gather data to give the AI information about our company and our product, and to give the AI information about the client that we're speaking to. So in order to collect that information, we're going to use this user input block. And this user input block allows us to create new kinds of inputs. We can create inputs very easily simply by going into the right-hand side here. You can see there are currently no inputs, but there is a plus button here. And when we click on that plus button, we will be able to add inputs. For now, let's create a new one since we don't have any yet. So once we create an input, you'll notice that your user inputs folder is now filled with this new input you've just created. And there are all kinds of user inputs that allow you to collect all different kinds of information. So for example, if you wanted to have a multiple choice question or long text, or a rating, or maybe you wanted to have the scrape a URL, the text from a URL, and pull in information from a website, you can do that. In this case, I'm going to use the upload file user input. And we can label our text here. We can say something like upload a doc containing all info about the product you are selling. Now, every time you create an input, that input gets assigned to a variable. And we want to name our variables in a way that makes sense. In this case, I'm going to name my variable product info so that I know what it's called and it's easy to refer to, because we're going to be using this information later inside of our workflow. So going back to our workflow, you'll see that we have these tabs here at the top, and we click back into our main.flow. You can now see that product info has been added into our user input block. So now we're giving the AI info about our product. Let's go ahead and create one more input that allows us to give the AI info about the client. Another way to create inputs is by hovering over the user inputs folder and clicking on this plus button here. You'll see that now another input has been created. Let's go ahead and name this input, and we're going to call this customer info. And for our label text, we're going to say upload a doc containing all info about the new client. We also want to have this be an upload file simply for the sake of demonstrating this quickly. You may want to collect, this information in chunks. I have a couple of documents about our customer and about our product so that we don't have to waste our time on this call showing you how to make essentially what is a Google form, right? Here we go, back in our main workspace here. So now we have our two user inputs. We are now effectively collecting the information required in order for the AI to do some sort of processing to it. Let's go ahead and we will add another block to our canvas. So all of these blocks, you can click and drag them to make more space on your canvas. So I'm going to just organize this just a little bit. And I'm going to click on this plus button again, and we're going to add a send message block. Now, the send message block allows us to send a message on behalf of the person, like we mentioned before. And this message is sending a message directly to the AI model, and we're going to get an output from the AI. Alternatively, we can also pretend to be the AI by changing the sender to a system sender, and that's going to allow us to, send a message on behalf of the AI to the user. Just a little nugget of information. We're sending we have the user selected here. So let's go ahead and add instructions for this send message block so that the AI can do some processing. Let's go ahead and we'll say something like generate a sales page with a comprehensive view of how our product can benefit the following customer. Next, we'll use some markdown, and we'll say something like about the customer just to create some visual organization for us. And then we're going to use these double curly braces and put customer info. Now, what we're doing here is we're calling the variable customer info. This is going to include all of the text from the document that we uploaded, right? So we assigned the variable customer info here, and then in our workflow in the send message block, we're calling it here inside of the send message block. Now, the other thing that we might want to do is give it information about our product. So I'm actually going to add a couple of lines here. We'll say about our product. And then I will include these double curly braces again and have product info here. And so just like that, we have a very simple workflow. We have, to reiterate, we kick off the workflow with the start block. We collect the information required in order to process this information. And then we have some sort of AI processing in order to actually generate the sales collaterals. Now, one thing that you may have caught, I definitely caught it when I saw this block, but you'll notice that we have created our customer info block here, but we're actually not collecting it in this user input block. We actually need to add it in. We can do that just like we added the product info input by tapping on the plus button. And we can now see that we can highlight customer info and we can simply add it in. So now we're collecting our product info and our customer info. Now let's say that I wanted the AI to do some thinking on our behalf, right? Let's say I wanted it to come up with some pain points and then utilize that information in order to generate these sales collaterals. Well, what we would do in that case is we would have another send message block. We'd have a block where we can do some other kind of AI processing. And in this send message block, we're going to ask the AI to come up with some pain points about our product. So we could say, what are some pain points that the following customer might have regarding project management? And we'll include the customer info here, just like we did before, using the calling of the customer info variable, which we created. Now, why project management? Because the fictional product that we are selling is called Flowtask, and remember, it's a project management tool. So mileage may vary. You may need to change this up if you're building this exact type of AI, right? So you'll notice that underneath there are some settings, right? We talked about the sender, right? One thing we didn't talk about is the response behavior. Now, normally by default, anytime you send a message to the AI, the returned message gets sent back to the user. It's displayed to the user. But in this case, we actually don't want to display this to the user. We just want to use the information in order to generate the final sales collateral. And so what we can do is similar to these user inputs is we can assign the response from this AI response, excuse me, sorry, this AI response to a variable, right? So I'm going to call this variable pain points. And then we can include this variable pain points inside of the block that actually generates the sales collateral. So I'm just going to include that in here. So now we're providing it with the info about the customer as well as the thinking it has done about the pain points this customer might be having. We're giving it that additional information to elevate that final output of our sales collateral. And so we have completed our workflow for creating sales collaterals. It only took a couple of blocks, right? Now, we'll cover these concepts in just a second, but we didn't cover querying data or function blocks. Just keep in mind, I'm just tabling those for now, but we are going to cover them a little later in this session. Now that we have our workflow completely set up, we have a couple of things to do, right? We need to determine what model we want to use, and we can do that by navigating to the model settings here. And then you'll notice that there are a few settings. There is the underlying model. The underlying model is the base, like the default model for your AI application. And you can choose all kinds of models for your AI applications. This includes models from Anthropic, like the new Claude 3 Sonnet, Claude 3 Haiku, Opus. This includes models from OpenAI, like GPT 3.5 and GPT 4. Also, Mistral, Meta, Google, etc. Now, for the most part, you will want to choose a model. Choosing a model has various trade-offs that you're making. So when it comes to choosing the right model, you need to understand that there's a balance between cost, efficiency, and output. So certain models are very good at certain things. And then other models that have a bit more potential when it comes to logical reasoning will end up costing you more per use. So something like a GPT-4 Turbo or a Claude 3 Opus, these are some of the best models when it comes to reasoning, but they cost more per tokens used. For general purpose use, typically I like to use GPT 3.5 or Claude 3 Haiku. For this one, I'm going to choose GPT 3.5 Turbo. And if you want to compare models, you can do that very easily by going to this Profiler tab here. This Profiler tab essentially allows you to input the same message. So, for example, if I wanted to see, oh, should I use GPT 3.5 Turbo or should I use Claude 3 Haiku? I could do that. I could even add more models here. So maybe I want to go GPT 4 Turbo, for example. And I can type any sort of message that I want here. So I could say, tell me a story about a dog, or whatever you want to type in here. Since it's just for testing, this is all we need to do. And when we tap enter, you can see how the models generate text side by side. And so it becomes very apparent that Claude 3 Haiku was the fastest of these models. GPT-4 Turbo is clearly the slowest of the three that we're testing, right? Although you also want to make sure that the output is what you want to see when you're using a model, right? So you can see here that it generated a bit more text. We can compare the text side by side. We can also compare the wait time and then also compare the price of these models. So you'll see here, GPT 3.5 costs, 0.00001 per token. Haiku is a little more expensive than that, and then Turbo is more expensive than both of them. So you can easily compare all these models side by side. It's a very useful tool. Back inside this model settings, though, once you decide on your underlying model, you have the ability to have a few customizations. One of those is the temperature of the model, and the temperature of the model essentially controls the amount of predictability in the AI's responses. So The higher the temperature, the more unpredictable the response will be. And if it's turned all the way up, you'll notice that you get an unstable warning. It'll essentially output gibberish. And if you turn it all the way down, what that means is that given the same text, it will produce nearly the same response. Typically, what I recommend to folks is start right in the middle of this slider. And if you find that you want your responses to be a little more, creative or unpredictable, variable, you'll turn it up a little bit. And if you find that your responses are too unpredictable, you want to have a little more consistency in your AI's output, you can turn this down a little bit, right? But right in the middle seems to be a very good place to start. The other thing that you can choose when you're selecting your model is the response size. And the response size is the max amount of tokens that are allotted to the AI's response. Now, there is a little bit of confusion sometimes, tokens to word equivalent. And so we have a quick calculation here at the top. You can typically think of the amount of words to be about 3/4 the amount of tokens. You can see here for 4,000 tokens, that equates to about 3,000 words. So let me go ahead and I will just change this response size. Maybe we'll make this, 2,000. And that's about 1,500 words. It should be plenty for whatever we need to produce. It also doesn't guarantee that it's going to generate that many tokens in its response. It's just the maximum amount, right? One of the nice things about Mind Studio, now that we have selected our underlying model, is we can actually determine what model we want to use at every step in our AI workflow. So jumping back to our automations tab, I can actually click on the individual send message blocks and determine those model settings in these blocks. And that's very useful because at every step in my AI workflow, I want to accomplish something different. And each model, is good at different things. So you're able to choose the right model for the right task within your workflow. So for example, when I'm coming up with pain points, that might be a process that I want to be fairly quick. And so using GPT 3.5, which is the underlying model, will work great. However, when I want to generate these sales collaterals, I may want the AI to think about it a bit more, use a bit more logical reasoning, enhanced natural language capabilities. And so I may want to go with a more premium model like, GPT-4 Turbo or Claude 3 Opus, right? And I have the same temperature controls and the same max response controls that I had in the model settings tab here above. So we've now, just to quickly summarize what we've done so far, we have created our workflow. We've chosen our model settings. We've chosen different models for different blocks in our workflow. So make sure we have the right model for the right task. Now what we can do before we publish our AI is we can preview a draft of our AI before we actually publish it and make it public, right? This is super simple. All you need to do is click on this preview button and you'll be able to preview a draft of your AI. And this is going to show the AI exactly as it would appear to your end user. In this case, that end user is someone on our sales team that's going to be using AIs to generate sales collaterals. So here we have a couple of inputs. We have upload a doc containing info about the product you're selling. Let me quickly go in and here I have my my product information, which I'm uploading as a PDF. It's going to scan that PDF and extract all the text. Now upload a doc containing all info about our new client. We can upload our doc about our client, maybe coming from our CRM or something like that. And now it's processing all of this information and it is generating the sales collateral for us. So what exactly is happening here? Well, if we go back into our workflow, we can see that it collected this information. It thought about the pain points that this customer might be having, and then it generated this collateral for us based on the previous blocks. We're kind of chaining these blocks together, right? And so what we have here is this sales collateral that we can copy and send over to this potential new client of ours, right? Now, one thing that's very nice about this draft preview is if we use this little toggle on the right-hand side, we can open up our debugger. And what the debugger is going to show us is every step in our AI workflow in order to get this final output. So we can see that the thread started, we collected some user inputs. There was this message that asked us for pain points, and we can see what the response of that was here. And then we can see the final message that generates this AI output. The other thing that you'll be able to see in this debugger is the length of time each step took in order to process. So you can see this message took around 7 seconds. The second message took around 30 seconds to complete. And then you can also see all of the related costs to running your AI. We have metered billing. And so what that means is that it's kind of like the electric company. When you use electricity, that gets metered, and then you'll pay the metered cost. So you can see what that costs here. This for me shows 0. I'm an admin on the platform, and so today I don't incur usage. But for demonstration purposes, we might want to fix this. But this will show your final cost for each step in your AI workflow. So we have our draft preview. We know it's working. The other thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to make sure that we have no errors in our AI project. So for example, let's say I had a typo here. Instead of product info, I was collecting product NIFO, right? And you'll notice that I now have an error warning popping up here. When I click on that error warning, I'm taken to this errors tab. So it's right next to the Explorer. And it will let me know that there's a variable that is named, but it doesn't exist. And when we click on it, we'll typically see something like this that'll let us know, oh, wow, this is actually a typo. Let me go ahead and fix that. So now there's no errors, there's no warnings. We tested it out. It all seemed to be working properly. The last thing we need to do before we publish our AI is to go through and determine some general settings for our AI, right? We can name it. So I can name mine sales collateral generator, whatever we want. We can give it a short description, make collaterals for clients. We have the ability to determine some global settings. Now, one thing I do want to highlight here is there's this feature called onboarding. And in the global settings, we can set up this onboarding to present the any sort of input on first time use. And this will turn that input into a global variable. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, when I use my AI here, you'll notice that every time I open up a new thread, I need to upload information about the product that I'm selling, right? And that's information that's probably constant. I'm not going to want to upload that every single time I use my AI. The way to fix this is by adding this input to our onboarding. And what that does is it allows us to ask this question once, and then it will store that information across all the threads that we create within our AI applications. So by adding this onboarding, I can now remove it from our initial user input block here, simply by clicking on it, tapping on the minus icon. And now we're collecting this right at the beginning of opening up our AI, because this is information that might not change all that often. So we now have this input in our onboarding section. We have the ability to upload any sort of app icon and a social sharing image if we decide to share this online. We can choose some custom styles for our AI application. So for example, if I wanted to have a background color and I wanted to choose the text color and have our accent color, I can do all of that very easily. You can choose the fonts, so you can really change the look and feel. I'm going to go ahead and disable this for now because I think the default font styles look perfectly fine for me. And then we can also determine who gets to see our application, right? If your app has public access disabled. What that means is that people outside of your workspace cannot see the AI. It'll only be available to you on your workspace, or if you invite people um, to collaborate with you, they will be able to see it. But this, when it's disabled, it means if you share the link, people are not going to have permission to see the AI. Remixing essentially allows other people to create a copy of the AI that you created and modify it, make it their own. If you are dealing with sensitive information, I recommend turning this off. But if you're just making a useful tool for people and are into open sourcing things and want people to make things better, you can remix it here, right? And then you also have the ability to embed these AIs in websites. We'll cover that in a second. You have the ability to enable API access, which will essentially allow you to insert your AI wherever you want inside of Zapier workflows, inside of your own custom applications. This is super powerful. We'll cover that in just a second. And then across workspaces, you can transfer ownership of AIs but that's not a feature you really need to worry about at this point. So we have all of our settings set up. We can go ahead and publish our AI. Our AI is now published, and we can now open it up inside of uh, our main workspace, right? This is our workspace. And we have the sales collateral generator. We can go ahead and you'll notice that the threads are locked because we're in the onboarding screen. So we can upload our product information one time. And now we can upload client information for every new client that we speak to, right? In this case, we still have that document for our sample customer green tech solutions. So this is super powerful, right? And this is just one example of all kinds of AI applications that you can make, right? We built this with, a lot of explanation, to be honest. I was explaining every single step, but we built it in about 30 minutes, and that included the instruction, right? And so you, on your own, hopefully after this webinar, will feel confident enough to start building your very own AI applications and start playing around inside of Mind Studio to figure out what you want to build and what kind of AI applications work for your particular use case. So you'll notice here we have the final screen, final output. We tap next, we're taken to a chat where we can ask it to make adjustments, or, if we want to go back and edit our AI, we can do that. So for example, I have it in a chat, but maybe I want that document editor. I can switch the Terminator block from chat to revised document. I can publish it again, and I can make all of these updates on the fly as many times as I want, and it will generate the new sales collaterals. Let's go ahead and refresh the page here. So now instead of a new thread, I upload the customer solutions. It's going to generate, and then we'll have a document editor here at the end once it's all done processing. So like we mentioned, there are a couple of things that we didn't cover just yet. We're going to cover, right? We're going to go into Q&A and open up the floor for questions. But before that, let me quickly explain what we're going to cover right after the Q&A. We are going to cover data sources and how data sources work. We're going to cover how to add function blocks, even if you don't know how to code. There are several functions that are made by developers for non-developers. I'm going to show you how to embed your AI applications on your website. And then I'm going to show you kind of like an end state of inserting AI into your existing business process using a tool like Zapier. So we'll dive into this in just a second. Let's go ahead and open up the floor for questions. Please feel free to type any questions you have in either the Q&A. Actually, we'll be monitoring the Q&A. Is all this making sense so far? All right. Great. Well, if you do end up having questions at any point, yes. Thanks, Andrew. Appreciate that. It's sometimes it's because it's not like a live chat, it's sometimes difficult to gauge response from folks that are watching. So I appreciate your participation. Andrew asks, is it possible to get a longer form output? The simple answer is yes. One of the other considerations when you choose your model settings is the context length. So what I recommend is you can browse different models and see what the maximum amount of response size is. For example, Claude 2 allows you to set a max response size of 37,500 words. And so if you're looking for an insanely huge response, you might want to select a model like Claude 2. And you can browse the model store here. We open this up in a new tab. You can see the amount of allotted tokens for a given model. So for example, you can see Claude 2 has 200,000 tokens. Looks like Claude 3 also has 200,000 tokens. Those will probably be your best bet for longer responses. David asks, can you cover data security and who technically owns or has access to the company data uploaded? Yes, absolutely. So we're going to cover this. In data sources as well. But let's say you have something like an upload file. So there are a couple of options here. One is, as the creator of the AI, you have access to this feature called global logging. And this will allow you to log any sort of responses from your end users. By enabling this, you, as the owner of the AI application, will be able to see any data that is uploaded directly to your AI application. That includes data that is coming from your end users. If this is disabled, then all of the data remains private for that specific thread. So nobody has access to the data, not even the creator of the AI application. When it comes to data sources, which allow you to upload your own data to your AI application in order to reference that data for AI responses, only the creator of the AI application has access to the data uploaded here. So if I uploaded a document, an end user would not be able to see all of the content in that document unless it was made publicly visible inside of a workflow. So if you asked it to quote directly from the document inside of your workflow, it would present some text from the document. All of the data is secured and encrypted on our servers. And at this point, we don't have any issues with security. It's all nobody else has access to it except for you as the person like uploading data to our site. Any other questions before we move on to data sources, functions, embedding, API usage, things like that? Michael asks, what are the most common business use cases you have seen deployed? I'm asking from the perspective of an agency. Yeah, that's a really great question, Michael. So let's quickly go to the main site here. So the best place to find all of these sorts of use cases is actually on the, let's see here, on the enterprise page, right? Where we see all kinds of AIs being created across various teams inside of an organization. So these are all things we're observing in the wild. Ways to have AI help you with lead qualification and scoring and, employee onboarding, performance reviews, content generation, you know, analysis of data. And particularly, this is helpful when it comes to like decision making, and it can help you think through outcomes of decisions and help you gain insights in data that you might not have seen. It can help you generate code. It can obviously act as instant support chatbots and linked up to various services in that way. There's a lot of interesting use cases that we've seen in the wild. Now, of course, these use cases are internal use cases from enterprises, so I can't publicly display them for folks. But we are seeing use cases that do those sorts of things. The other thing I will say is there are kind of two big buckets as an agency that we've seen agencies build for enterprise clients. And those two big buckets are automating tasks, making repetitive tasks all automated by via AI. So things like data entry or like this sort of thing, like content generation and things like that. Um, and then things that augment human work, right? Things that still involve a human, uh, like human intervention, but can be made better via the assistance of AI. And so, as an agency, when you're looking for those specific opportunities, you'll end up finding places within an organization where you can optimize inefficiencies and where you can actually make the workers in a particular enterprise more productive, more efficient, and improve the overall quality of their output. I hope that answered your question. Um, Peter has a question. OpenAI will remember conversations, so will Mind Studio maintain that integration for individual clients that we have? So the quick answer to that is yes and no, right? Like you can have information that you set up as variables that can be stored, right? And so in that sense, yes, it does save the information. Additionally, every time that you chat with the AI and continue chatting within the same thread, all of the previous context from the entire conversation is saved as you continue chatting with the AI. As far as the AI itself picking out pieces of information and storing it as, a variable or like to your profile or things like that, those sorts of features don't exist today. But we do plan on incorporating them at some point. Any other questions before we dive into these other topics like data sources and functions and embedding and API access? Basically, this Zapier workflow is actually really cool. And it looks like we do have enough time to get to it, but it's a bit more of an advanced concept, but it's actually really cool when you see it in practice. And so I do want to demo that. I'm going to grab just a quick drink of water. Excuse me one moment. I see Cindy in the chat has a question that says, where can we see other apps developed by others which allow for remixing? So the best place to do this right now is to join our Discord server. People are posting the AIs that they build in there. A lot of people will create AIs, post them to the platform as templates. Additionally, if you are creating something and you want it to be made publicly available and it's helpful to others, we can upload it as a template to our creation screen. Peter says, I'm most interested in the ability to point to an Azure database and automate responses. Yeah, this is where the API will be very helpful for you, Peter. So maybe it's a good time to actually go through and talk about these other features just sort of at a base level so you understand kind of the whole package here. The first thing that we're going to talk about, and Emily, Una, Giorgio, if I miss anything or we need to stop for some reason, please just hop on and let me know. Otherwise, we're gonna continue. So jumping back into our editor here, let's quickly talk about data sources. So a data source allows you to upload any sort of files and store those in a vectorized way in order to query them and utilize a technique that is commonly known as RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation. So when you create a data source, you simply tap on the plus button. You can then name your data source, upload all kinds of files to your data source. So in this case, maybe I want to, upload some sales training docs. And at this point, what's happening is a vector database is being created. All of these documents are being vectorized, and you can see all of the vectors being created here. And once they're all vectorized, we can double click on them and we can actually see a preview of the data source. And so in this case, this is 101 qualifying sales questions. So we're basically uploading part of our sales knowledge base. We can check the extracted text, and this is something you definitely want to do when you create a new data source, because when you upload a data source, you want to make sure that the file is not, corrupted in any way. So if you notice that the extracted text has strange characters or strange spacing, is not super clear, that might be indicative of having what we call a malformed file. And then you can also, for those of you that are a bit more well versed on the technical side, you can see all of the raw chunks that are created for each individual file. You can see all of the raw vectors that are created. And essentially, these data sources are super useful when it comes to uploading large documents and wanting to reference those large documents to provide context to your AI. Unlike a relational database, which is similar to, to really, I don't want to be reductive, but it's kind of like a spreadsheet, right? You have a bunch of key value pairs. One thing ties to this thing, and you can see the relation between the two. A vector database works a little differently. It essentially weighs every vector in relation to another vector, and so based on what you query inside this vector database, it's going to return what it thinks is the most relevant response. Similar to how when you type something into Google, it tries to return what it thinks is the most relevant website that you're trying to look at. It works in a very similar way. So these data sources can be named, right? We can name this one sales knowledge base. And we can utilize a strategy called RAG inside of our workflows very easily. Now, I'm going to go ahead and create a new workflow here. And in order to utilize RAG, we'll simply go to our final block here. And we have this setting called message processing. When we click on the strategy, you'll see that we have access to this processing called RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation. And so at this point, we can simply choose the data source, in this case, our sales knowledge base. We can choose the max results, which is the amount of times that we run a particular query. And in this case, when we utilize it inside of chat, it takes our initial message in the chat and it queries the database with that particular message. And then it uses the result of that query as context for the AI to respond to us. So it's essentially saying, use the result from the query from the database and answer my original question, which was the message that I sent. In practice, it looks a little bit like this. Let me go ahead. I'm going to right click and rename this. We'll call this sales questions. We'll just call it sales queues for now. And I'm also just very quickly kind of going on a little bit of a tangent, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a different workflow to create our menu. Because let's say we want one to make sales collaterals, we want one to ask sales questions. We can do that very easily by simply adding a menu. We can delete this terminator block, and then we can say, we can set up the menu. What do you want to do? And then we can say, we'll add options similar to how we added options for our user inputs. We'll say collaterals, and we can say ask knowledge base. Maybe you want this to say create collaterals. So this is just the menu. It's not right now. We need to set where it's going based on our selection. And in this case, what we want to do, let me rename this. I'll call this menu. We need to utilize a jump block, actually a couple of jump blocks, because the jump block is going to allow us to jump to each individual workflow. So I can click this jump block, and let's say I want one to go to our main flow. We'll rename this to our collaterals flow. So this one's going to collaterals flow, and this one is going to sales questions flow. And so then we can click on each of these. We'll click on the dot. So for create collaterals, we'll go to collaterals. And for ask knowledge base, we'll go to sales questions. So now what happens is we will set this as our entry workflow. And that's the place where all of our users will land for the first time. We now have this menu, and it ends up looking something like this. So when we preview the draft, we can create a new thread, and now it's going to ask us what we want to do. If we then ask the knowledge base, we can type a question into the knowledge base and ask it questions, and it's going to use this technique called RAG to answer our questions. We can also, jumping back quickly to this data source stuff, is we can set a, now that we have all the RAG set up, we can set a system introduction. So this is the initial message that you see when you open up a chat for the first time. We would say, what do you want to know? And then back inside of here, let me close out these tabs just so we don't get confused here. Back in our preview, you'll see we have a new version available. And so now when we create a new thread, it's going to ask us, when we ask the knowledge base, what do we want to know? We can ask it anything. We can say, based off of our knowledge base. So we can say qualifying questions for budget or something like that. Something that is related to our knowledge base. And so it's pulling information. It's querying the database. It's then saying, hey, here's what I found. And then the AI is taking that information and processing it and outputting a response for us, right? So you can see here are some qualifying questions for the budget based on the information provided. That is the data source that we uploaded. You can also always explicitly query the data using the query data block. It works very much in the same way, only you will include the query here. And so you can include whatever you want in the query at this point. Typically, this is only used when you want to create a refined query. That's not something that we cover in this video. We have other YouTube videos covering how to do this. The next thing that we're going to cover is these custom functions. So very quickly, I'm going to jump into my sales collateral flow. And let's say I wanted to add an image to my sales collateral, something that is generated also by AI. We don't have blocks today that allow you to generate images. But when we click on run function, we can actually add all kinds of different functions, JavaScript functions, to our workflow here. I can browse the community functions, and you'll see that someone in our community has created a generate image DALL-E block here. Now, these function blocks, let's close some of this stuff out. All of these function blocks are just vanilla JavaScript, and they're submitted by developers to our platform. And so in this case, they just coded up a block that allows us to tap into the DALL-E API and generate images. You can see that there's some JSON to configure this. You, as a regular user, you don't have to pay attention to any of this stuff. You don't even have to open up the function file. All you need to know is how to enter the configuration on this side. So and it's just filling out a form. You fill in your API key, you choose the model that you want to use, you put in the image prompt, and then you save it as a variable. Then you can use that later on in your workflow. And so there are all sorts of different all sorts of different functions available that connect to all sorts of different services and do all kinds of different things. And it allows you to expand the capabilities of your AI in various kinds of ways. So you can see we have Airtable, we have Calendly, DALL-E, Dream AI, Stable Diffusion. You can perform Google searches or analyze images using GPT-4 Vision. There's ways to also send messages through Slack, or you can send webhooks, send data to make webhook or Zapier webhook or things like that. Send messages via Twilio. There's a lot of different options. One thing that we are planning on adding is we want to turn a lot of these into first party services. So we're kind of using this functions list as an indicator of what kinds of things people are interested in. And so we do have planned updates for our platform to incorporate services like image generation services directly into the workflow just as a block. So, in a few weeks, you might see something that says, generate text, generate image, analyze image, all sorts of different AI tools included in the main blocks here, and then these services, you won't need an API key. You can just use it like you would any other AI model. And that means it'll be metered on our end, but you don't need to configure anything. You just type in the prompt and then you're good. So that's functions in a nutshell. The other thing that we have a couple things left, and then we'll again open the floor back up for questions. One thing we actually covered a lot here that I wasn't planning on covering, like creating this menu block that leads to different places, allowing you to route things. We covered data sources, and we talked a little bit about the query data block and how you can use that for creating all sorts of refined queries for your database. We talked about custom functions and how you can leverage custom functions inside of your workflows. And all they are just plain vanilla JavaScript. They're made by developers, so if you have developers on your team, they can also create custom function blocks very easily for your AI workflows. So if you want to, tap into your own API, or you have an API that connects to your own database, you could bring that information into your AI workflow very easily via a custom function block. Next, let's go ahead and let's cover how to embed AIs on a website, right? I'm going to quickly open up Webflow on my end. See here. Perfect. And I'm going to go ahead and open up my demo page here. So let's say I wanted to embed an AI on my own website. You can see here, I have this all set up. Let me go ahead and I'm just going to go ahead and delete this. I have a website. I want to set up my own, I want to embed the AI on my website. This is accomplished very easily. The first thing we need to do is inside of our editor here, we need to enable embedding for our site. The other thing we need to do is we need to make sure it's publicly accessible. Otherwise, people will not be able to access our embedded AI. And then you'll see here that we have an embed code, and we can simply copy that embed code. And then inside of our website builder, or inside of your own code, if you're coding your own website, you can simply look for some sort of block that is called embed. I think it's called embed across Webflow, across Wix, WordPress, any sort of site builder. At this point, you'll get a code editor or a place to add your embed code, right? And so we can paste that embed code in. There we go. Now we can save and close this. And then when we publish our site, it should take just a second, but you'll be able to see on our new site that the AI is now embedded into our website, and it's asking us the same things. It is not 100% responsive, so if you want to, here, let me turn on line wrapping. If you want to change the width or the height, you'll need to modify some style parameters here, but it's very easy to do. And then you can use it like normal, right? You can upload your AI. This will allow, now that it's public, anybody can use it. So just keep that in mind, is you will be metered for any sort of events that happen, even when you're not the person using it, when you're, if you share this link with someone, somebody else uses it, you'll be charged for that metered usage. So keep that in mind. But it works in the exact same way. We have these, we have our sales collateral generator. It's allowing us to upload documents. It's going to generate the sales collateral. It's the same exact AI. It's just appearing embedded within a website. Also, if you have accounts on your website, you can show advanced configurations, and this allows you to tie the authentication on your website to a unique user ID, so that people can have persistent sessions no matter what device that they open the AI on. Um, Actually, my colleague Giorgio, who's on this webinar, has a really, really great instructional video and webinar on how to do exactly this on WordPress. If you're interested in something like this, I recommend you check out our YouTube channel to learn a bit more about that. The other thing that I think is kind of the the embodiment of kind of what we envision for the platform is that these sorts of things can be used and embedded directly in existing business processes. And so I'm going to go ahead and close this out. Let's open up this other tab here so that I can show you what I mean. Here I have an AI that is a sales collateral generator, but I've set it up in a slightly different way. I have this flow, and this flow is tied directly into Zapier. So you can see here that I have a Zapier workflow, and inside of this Zapier workflow, we're actually running Mind Studio in the background and getting a response. And then we're using that response across a couple of different services. This is super powerful. Let me show you what I mean. Typically on a client's, let's say you have a website and you have some sort of intake form, and your client is going to enter the intake form in order to get in touch with you. They might enter their company name. So let's say we're talking to the same person, Green Tech Solutions. Alex Johnson is the point of contact. They are the director of operations, and let's say 150 people work at the company. This could be a really long form. This could be a really short form. I've filled out all sorts of forms that, have taken me a long time to fill out. So I'm just going to go ahead and opt for the short version of this form just for the purposes of this demo, at which point we can all assume that they entered all of this information, right? Who they are, a little bit about them, their branding, their messaging, etc., right? And once they submit this client intake form, that information typically is linked up to some sort of CRM. So in this case here, I have a little demo CRM, and I'm leveraging Zapier in order to automatically bring that information into our CRM, right? I'm sure there are other tools as well, but Trello seems to be a perfectly fine place to have a demo. And so right now we have a couple of Zaps that we've created in Zapier. And for those of you that don't know what Zapier is a service that allows you to connect all of your different services together. And that includes Mind Studio, right? So here we have a Google form, our intake form, creating a card directly in Trello. So you can see this new card for Alex Johnson was created directly in Trello. It has all of the information that was entered into our intake form. At this point, I also have another Zap that has a flow that pulls information from a new card in Trello and uses that information inside of our workflow in Mind Studio in order to create the sales collaterals. And then it's going to send those sales collaterals back to Zapier in order for us to use it inside of Trello and also to create a draft in our inbox. And so what's happening now inside of our Mind Studio app here is we have this flow that brings in this unique variable that is pulled in from Zapier, right? This is the connection we have to Zapier. we have inside of our API access been given an app ID and an API key. We used both of those to open up the Run Workflow app inside of Zapier. And then we're allowing Zapier to send us all of these different kinds of variables for our Mind Studio workflow. And so we're able to generate these sales collaterals and then send the response back to Zapier. So that's what's happening in this workflow here. We run the workflow, generate the sales collaterals. It then adds those collaterals as a comment in Trello. It formats them, and then it creates a draft in my inbox. And this all happens within a couple of minutes, right? Like you can already see that we have a comment saying, here's a draft for the suggested email to send to Alex Johnson, right? We have a full email here that we can copy and paste, but now it's in our records generated by AI automatically. And then if I refresh this, we also have a draft in my email inbox or the email inbox of that particular salesperson that has those exact same collaterals, so that all we need to do is enter the recipient's email, which can also be automated, enter the subject line, which can also be automated, and then add our signature at the bottom of this email if everything looks okay. And what makes this so powerful is that we just saved a ton of time. In addition to, the automated data entry, pulling information to and from the CRM, the API allows us to connect to services like Zapier to create these really well integrated workflows into existing business processes. And so what that meant for this particular enterprise, right, is that by the time the client has finished entering the information in this client intake form, the salesperson no longer has to manually enter that into the CRM. They no longer later have to come back to the CRM and pull the information about this client because they got a reminder to email them. They no longer have to think about what kind of pain points this customer might be having. They no longer have to take those pain points and write collaterals that are specifically tailored to them. They don't have time to do all of that stuff. We're saving a lot of time, and that allows this salesperson who's leveraging this tool to uh, to focus on the things that matter, spending more time in front of clients, thinking more strategically, more creatively in order to keep that business moving forward and staying ahead of the curve. So by automating all of this stuff, we greatly expand the capabilities of the salesperson and we make that organization much more efficient. And that's kind of the thesis of this all, right? This is what Mind Studio can do for you as well. Okay, this kind of concludes the demo portion, the teaching portion of our discussion. I do want to open the floor back up for questions. Don't worry, again, this is all going to be sent to you to view later. But my hope is that by the end of this is that you have had you have the confidence in order to start using Mind Studio to build your own AI applications. Please, please, please feel free to leave any questions in the Q&A or in the chat. Rob, thank you so much. Yeah, I appreciate that comment. This was a lot of fun to show you all, and thank you all for participating in the discussion. Okay, so Michael has a question. Is there someone I can set up a live call with to discuss the agency offering? Thanks. Yes. So if for agencies, we actually have an agency page. At this point, if you apply to this page, you can send us your contact information, give us some information about your agency, and then we will get you started on the right path to become an agency partner within Mind Studio. This will, within the next month or two, we're planning on adding an entire agency tier so that we can help enable agencies set up these kinds of business applications for other organizations and enterprises. So please just fill out this form and somebody will be in contact with you either to set up a call, or we also have other agency specific trainings coming up. So, if you go to our events page, we post events all the time We have all kinds of different events for agencies, for additional learnings, for certification, things like that. This is the place to go to, though. I'm gonna go ahead and drop this link in the chat specifically for you, Rob. Yeah, and the last thing we should talk about, if there's no questions, is sort of how you can get involved with not just using Mind Studio, but being an active member of our Mind Studio community. We are super excited and very welcoming and very inviting. We have an extremely active Discord, which is primarily run by Una and Giorgio and Emily and all these amazing people that allow us to create this super vibrant community of AI builders, AI enthusiasts, agencies, enterprises, all in this like weird, awesome melting pot. Um, I highly recommend you join our Discord. If you want to learn more about various features and how to build specific AI products, Giorgio is an AI master. He has tons of courses available on our YouTube that show you how to build very specific, useful things for both enterprise and for personal use. Um, Teaches you how to do things like this advanced embedding or setting up a SaaS product using Mind Studio. All sorts of interesting tutorials there. We also have a full certification course that's taught by a third party from a company we've partnered with called The Upgrade, where you'll be taught by instructor Peter Bittner. There are 3 levels to certification. So if you're looking to just learn the basics, there's a course for that. If you're looking to double click on features, learn best practices for data sources and for function blocks and for workflow patterns and things like that. That's sort of our level 2 course. And then at our level 3 course, we kind of have everybody zoom out so you can really analyze an existing business or organization and help you identify all the places where AI solutions exist. Because all of you know, no organization is perfect, right? There are inefficiencies everywhere there are several places where you can leverage AI make uh, to make these companies more efficient and also make the people working in them better at everything they do. Yeah, just to be clear, none of this requires any sort of technical skill. You don't need to know how to code, is what I mean. You might need to know how to think through workflows and systems thinking is very important. If you know how to code, this might come much easier to you, but all of this is very, very accessible. Anybody can build their own AI applications. You don't need to know how to code in order to build your own AI applications. If you're familiar with no code tools, and you like using no code tools, like this is a very great platform for you. Although, but on the other hand, if you're a developer, we also provide those capabilities there as well. But they're not required in order to build applications. Yeah, the other thing is if you're interested in making content or hosting any sort of webinar, or you want to bring someone from the team on to something that you're doing and help talk about AI uh, through through your lens and just have general discussion on AI, we'd love to get in touch with you. If you are a writer and want to write, we have plenty of opportunities. Um, you know, Give us a review, like let us know what you think about the platform. We're obviously open to answering any questions you might have inside of Discord. Even if you just want to give us feedback on the product, we're all ears. And we're just so excited that you're here and taking your first steps to building your own AI applications or building AI applications for others, because that's also a very useful skill and I imagine will be a very lucrative skill in the coming years. All right. Well, this feels like a very good place to end the webinar. Thank you all so much for joining us today. Really appreciate you coming and hope you found this helpful. And please, please, please join our Discord, get involved in the community, and we're looking forward to seeing all of the things that you're building. We also have a community call every Friday. It's actually happening in 30 minutes. So if you want to join that call and actually learn a bit more about the community, see what community members are asking, and how they're using AIs, you're welcome to join. The invite will be in Discord. Thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your day.